everybody. Thank you for tuning into my YouTube channel. This is Eve West. My YouTube channel is dedicated to promoting a book that I wrote. It's called Follow. My book is a holistic view about spirituality, looking at spirituality from a psychological as well as an earthly perspective. As I say in all of my videos, or most of my videos, we tend to think of spirituality purely psychological, from the metaphysics, love, kindness, creativity, intuitiveness and things like that, but spirituality is also earthly. And so when we're born, we're not born embracing our earthly. We're actually taught to deny the earthly aspect of ourselves. So it causes a type of dissociative personality where we have two selves. We have our earthly ego, which is the physical self, and then we have an astral self, which is what puppeteers or governs the ego, and that's in the astral realm. And so this book is dedicated to trying to find a connection between the two aspects of ourselves. My last video dealt with the beast, and the beast actually talks about how in the matrix environment, the constructs of the matrix, they create I guess what you would call desire. It cultivates desire that is never grounded into physical reality because we don't have ownership of our sacral aspect of ourselves. When you think of the powers that be, oftentimes they're referred to as the Lord of the Rings. And so you think about the celestial body of Saturn. The ring around the planet Saturn symbolizes the masculine holding in the feminine energy. And so when you don't have ownership of your masculine, earthly, sacral aspect of your being, your energy just bleeds out, and eventually you have to give up the mind and body and you reincarnate to try to fulfill and ground your desires within the next incarnation. And so the beast pretty much just talked about that. How this environment creates a beastly aspect of us, and we have an obsession, if you will, with the earthly, with the material, but we're not able to attain those material things for ourselves. We only gain access to a very small portion of them. And so this particular video deals with the next chapter, and the next chapter is it's called Twist. It's called Twist. And then the byline, or the subtitle is, it correlates to a video by Britney Spears. It's called If You Seek Amy. If You Seek Amy. And, I actually named it that subtitle. I actually, decided to give the Twist that subtitle because this particular video, this particular song really gets into dissociative personalities and how we are split off from ourselves and we interact with ourselves in a very disintegrated way when we're in the matrix, so to speak. So this is it's a very touchy topic for me because If You Seek Amy has a lot to do with myself. I've been, reincarnated so many times that there's a severe polarization between my ego and my, I guess you would call my astral self. And so my ego is more caring, loving, kind, that type of thing, sweet, as you would call it. But my astral self is very menacing and evil. And so, we're worlds apart, literally, in a way, when you think about the universe as an internal aspect of ourselves. I named it Twist because the thing is that whenever you're born into physical reality, you become a wife. You actually marry desire. And so when you look at the etymology of the word wife, it comes from a word that means to twist. And so when you go back to the Garden of Eden in the book of Genesis, it talks about how, Eve, evil, and evil actually correlates to Eve being ill. That's where we get the word evil. Eve is ill, and Eve represents the feminine right brain aspect of a personality, and so the soul. And so when you're actually making the right brain ill, you're twisting and distorting the truth. And so we see that come to life in the video, If You Seek Amy. And so when you first see the video, If You Seek Amy, you see Britney Spears, trying to find a girl named Amy. And so when you first see her, you see there's a girl in a bathroom with a priestess, I call her, that's sitting on a bathtub running some water, and you see Amy actually using the bathroom You think, you get the idea that she's she's using the bathroom. And so the reason why we can't see Amy's face is because Britney Spears is Amy. So this is a dissociative aspect of herself that she can't necessarily find union with. So you would say Amy is like her ego, and she's the astral aspect of Amy. And so, as you go through the video, you see that Britney Spears seems very concerned. She's really trying to find Amy. And she talks about she's seen Amy before, but it's very difficult to find connection with her. And so when you look at the dancing in the video, you see that Britney Spears is really talking about union with her earthly aspect of herself. The dancers, they take their hands and they actually maneuver over their upper body, and then they maneuver over their lower body. So it goes to show that she's trying to find wholeness. She's trying to find herself in a way. And so, in the video, it really, depicts how we have a dissociative aspect of ourselves that we really don't know. And so when you think about the ego, you can think about a mask. We have to actually play a part, if you will, in the matrix, in our physical reality, and we're forced to play this part. We're forced to deny our emotions. And so, like say for example, like when I used to go to Chick-fil-A, and every time I would say thank you, somebody, the person serving me would say my pleasure. And so after a while, it became really fake. I was like, why are they, constantly saying that? It sounded very robotic. What if you, you were working at the Chick-fil-A and you were having a bad day? Say you had really bad cramps or something like that, and you had a really, just irritable customer, and then you had to say my pleasure or what have you. You wouldn't feel that way. You would feel like telling them, screw you, you need to get a better attitude, I don't feel well, I don't feel like serving you, whatever the case is. So you're not able to embrace your true self. You have to play a part. And so, when I looked at different doctrines and things like that, like Taoism and so forth, and it talks about, the spontaneity of life and so forth, we actually are forced to deny that spontaneity that we have, that childlike aspect of ourselves, to function within the matrix, to adhere to the laws and the rules that we have to abide by. And so, and if you seek Amy, we see that she has a dissociative personality she's trying to find connection with. And Amy is, using the bathroom. So you get the inkling that Amy is really getting everything out. So within the incarnation, at the end, you have to go through a process, I guess what you would call a purge. You purge everything that that was stored into your unconscious mind. So all the times that you worked at the Chick-fil-A and you had to say my pleasure, but you really wanted to say screw you or something like that, our feelings don't go anywhere. Our feelings get stored in the unconscious mind. It gets stored in the moon. When I talk about the moon, I talk about it being a celestial waste dump, so to speak. You can think of the moon as a waste dump for the ego. And so, when your trash can fills up, you have to empty it. And so that's basically what Amy is doing in the bathroom with the high priestess, who's sitting on the bathtub about to baptize her, if you will, after she lets everything out. And so, it's very interesting because there's a lot of correlation between If You Seek Amy and the movie, The Wizard of Oz. And so when you see Amy, you see her, or Britney Spears, you see her with shoes on, with red shoes, like Dorothy, wore red shoes or red slippers in The Wizard of Oz. And you see a flower, it's like a flower on her shoe. And so the flower represents the ankh, or represents the vagina, if you will. Amy's trying to find her way back to her roots, to her mother, to the vagina, so to speak. And so, we see that also too when Amy, not Amy, but when Britney Spears is, saying, I can't get her off of my brain, She's talking about, you know, her nature, if you will, and she picks up a piece of underwear as she's saying that. So she's trying to find her way back to the womb. And so when we descend into earth reality, we're really trying to find our way back to our nature, although everything within the environment facilitates you know, not doing that. But that's essentially what we're trying to find our way back to, trying to find our way back to ourselves, to our integrity, so we can ascend off the earth plane. And so you see that you know, Britney Spears is really horny. You know, she says, oh, tell me, have you seen her, because I'm so. And so it talks about the Kundalini extensively. It reflects the Kundalini and how, you know, she's a horny devil, if you will. You know, we think about the Gospel of Judas within Gnostic texts. It's very interesting when Jesus is talking to Judas. And, you know, he tells Judas, you're going to betray me, and, you know, your horn has been raised. And so when he's talking about the horn has been raised, he's talking about the sexual aspect of this astral self. So Jesus is Judas. Jesus is Judas. It's just the aspect of him. And we know that, you know, Jesus is existing within another dimension when he says, you know, in the Bible, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. And so, you know, he's the ego. Jesus is the physical, fleshly representation of himself, but the Father is the astral, heavenly representation of himself. And so he has to ascend to the Father. He has to find union with his etheric astral body, and so he can you know, ascend off the earth plane. And so when we see Britney Spears with these shoes on, and we see that you know, she's trying to find union with and go back to the womb and back to her roots, if you will, she you know, she's looking for sexual release. There's a scene where she's in a room with some other women, and they're dancing provocatively and showing how horny they are in a way, and there are guys looking about them. And so she's about to participate in a it's like a gangbang, if you will. She's trying to, you know, she's about to participate in a gangbang where she's having sex with all of these men. And so it really goes to show how, you know, as a soul, we have two aspects. We have a feminine and we have a masculine. And, you know, you have to find union with both of those. This correlates to the pineal. The pineal gland correlates to the spiritual, but the pituitary gland correlates to the earthly. And so until your Kundalini rises and you meet the pineal and you become whole, you know, you won't find rest, or you won't find peace, if you will. And so, you know, we really see that she has to embrace, or she embraces this, you know, pituitary aspect of her, so she can get some relief, if you will. She participates in a gangbang, and then, you know, after the gangbang is over, we see her embodying Amy. And so she's in a clouded white room. And, you know, the interesting thing about this video is, you know, when we first see Britney Spears, her hair is blonde, totally blonde. Her roots are blonde. But when she, you know, comes out of the room, her roots are black. Her roots are black. And so this is something very subtle to the naked eye. You know, if you don't have an open third eye, you're not going to catch a whole lot of things that the, I call the Illuminati, but the Freemason creators of our false reality, the things that they put into the various constructs of the Matrix. But we see here that she goes back to her roots. In other words, she goes back to being a black woman. She goes back to being a black woman. And so, you know, all of us, when I get to the another chapter, it's called Black Magic. All of us are black before we entered into the reincarnation system. And every incarnation, your melanin gets extracted until you lose all awareness. And this correlates back to, you know, World War II with Nazi Germany and the Jews and Hitler. You know, Hitler preferred a blonde hair, blue-eyed race, and so blonde hair and blue eyes corresponds to the absence of melanin. You know, that's a master race. A master race is when you have no melanin and you're totally governed by your reptilian brain. And when you're governed by your reptilian brain, you're governed by an outside aspect. It's like you're hence the whole term dumb blonde. You're a dumb blonde, basically. You know, you might be smart within the constructs of the Matrix, but as far as having insight, you don't really have a lot of insight into situations. You know, you're just kind of book smart in a way, but you're flighty and you don't really have any any true knowledge. True knowledge comes from within, but your knowledge, you get it externally. And so we see in the matrix environment, the less melanin you have, the better you're able to function within the construct. And the more melanin, the less you're able to function, because the matrix is designed to take the true inner knowledge away from a human being. And so we see, Britney Spears descending. So she's making a descent from this white room, and she's found union with Amy, and we can tell that she has found union with her, because before she descends the staircase in the white room, she says, "Oh baby, baby, if you seek Amy tonight, oh baby, baby, we'll do whatever you like." And so Amy is able to embrace this carnal aspect of herself. She's getting all these urges and things like that have been suppressed within the physical, and letting them out so she can find union with her astral self. And so when we see Britney descend the staircase, we see the high priestess that baptized her in the bathroom give her a dish mitten, so she won't be burned by the dish of apple pie that she gets on the table. And so when you look at the that significance, when we think about the apple, we think about knowledge. And so I can really attest to how knowledge creates suffering. When I went through my whole and still going through my whole crucifixion, if you will, and getting certain knowledge, it really did a lot to it really created a type of psychosis, if you will. When you really find out, then you're in a false reality, and certain things that you've done is very debased. Like, for example, birthdays. When we think of birthday parties and we have cakes, we have candles on the cake, and so you blow your candles out. And so that's a way of celebrating your enslavement. Actually, when you reincarnate and you have a birthday, you're blowing out your consciousness, and you agree to descend into hell and take away your knowledge. And so that's what it means to blow out the candles on your birthday cake. So whenever you when you're waking up and you attain knowledge like that, and you realize that when you were doing things like that at birthdays, and you were blowing out your knowledge and celebrating your enslavement, it's hard for you to have some distance with that, and reconcile that truth, if you will. And so the high priestess gives her a dish mitten to get the apple pie. So the knowledge has been made into something that she wants. And so when we see Britney leave the house, if you will, she's able to embrace this illusion of having a perfect family. Like when you see her outside in front of the paparazzi, she is able to embrace this, the fact that she has a perfect family. They look Stepford-like. So we know it's an illusion. She knows it's an illusion, but she's able to have some separation with that dish mitten to give her some distance with the knowledge. So the apple turns to apple pie. And also, it's very significant with the paparazzi too, because this also correlates to, in Christianity, how Jesus says, "If you see me, you've seen the Father," and ascending to the Father. So Papa, means the Father. So Britney Spears has ascended to her astral self and her ego have found union with one another. And so that's why, instead of being persecuted, she is by the paparazzi, she is she's adored. And so she's a star now. She's a star, and she's able to embrace her illusion, knowing that it's just a playful Earth reality is not supposed to necessarily be about suffering or trying to save the world or anything like that. It's supposed to be about pleasure, really. When you think about it, we've been put here as slaves, but this is just a way. This is a construct that's supposed to be a way to experience yourself with some disintegration, but also integration with balance. When you get so disintegrated, you really start to get alien, and you look at the other as an alien aspect of you, and you start to accrue judgment. So if you seek Amy is very important, in terms of the microcosm of this book to me, because when I was younger, I was dissociated from my body, with abuse and so forth, and so and with mind programming. And when you become dissociated, you accrue suffering. And so as I'm coming down from my incarnation and coming down from all the programming and seeing the truth, you know, it's a severe crucifixion, and trying to find union back with, you know, with my nature, with my earthly aspect of myself. And, you know, although I am encouraged to find that connection, there is always, the environment always facilitates a way of disintegration. So it's like, become integrated and become conscious. Like the New Age, they always encourage you to become conscious. But when you look at the various constructs of the matrix, it prevents you from finding that integration with this, you know, with this aspect of yourself. So, you know, overall, that's pretty much what If You Seek Amy is about. And I talk about more, it kind of correlates a little bit to the Beast, but I talk a lot about how sex is very desecrated and debased within the matrix. And, you know, we put sex into the psychological mind, and sex is supposed to be about the body. It's not supposed to be about the mind. And when you've put it there, you've desecrated it. And, you know, we think about sex all the time. You know, they put sex in, you know, M&M commercials. You know, you see the M&Ms getting it on, and it's different too, because, you know, kids love candy. And so whenever you're targeting kids especially, and you're putting sex and infusing sex into things that kids actually watch, and cultivating a desire for sex at an early age, you're really destroying them. You're destroying the soul. And so, you know, I talk about how, you know, with contraception and thinking about sex, and, you know, going to the store and picking up condoms, and you know, just this obsession with sex really aims to prevent the rising of the Kundalini, and how, you know, you're supposed to really bank your sexual energy so you can ascend, so the oil that is stored in the back can get up to the, what do they call it, the hypothalamus or whatever, where you unite the pineal and the pituitary gland. But, you know, if we're continuously you know, just having sex and having orgasms and short-circuiting the mind, so to speak, with a whole bunch of dopamine, you know, we're never going to be able to ascend, and actually find enlightenment and realization, if you will. So this whole reality is designed to, you know, to make you a shell of yourself, and to make you not embrace, you know, aspects of yourself, and in a playful way. You know, basically this whole construct is to accrue guilt. And so in future chapters, like in Shadows, I talk about the different dissociative personalities that I have. And it's very interesting because when I started to wake up and see my personalities, I just was blown away. I really had no idea behind my mask I had such evil and devious personalities. Like, for example, one of my personalities hates black people and I'm black. You know, that to me was very strange. It's like, you know, as an ego, you know, I embrace myself, and I embrace all nationalities and ethnicities and religions. And, you know, I think when you are looking at somebody that's different from you, you're in a way looking at yourself. But there's a part of me that's very, I guess what you would call prejudice. And I didn't really realize that. So I was trying to figure out, you know, how did my nature, and this astral aspect of me devolve into that? And really what it comes down to is programming. You as an ego don't have the, I guess, the say, if you will. You don't get to say what goes into your to your mind. It's all about God, this astral aspect of you. And so as an ego, if you play a very diverse person, someone who embraces diversity, then you also possess the opposite, someone who does not embrace diversity. It's like you can't be a good ego if you don't have a bad astral, so to speak. And so that's where judgment kind of, you know, accrues, because if you're an ego and you're born ignorant, you know, every reincarnation, they wipe our knowledge, if you will. You're going to judge your astral self as being evil. So as an ego, when I was asleep, I would really judge people for being racist. I'm like, oh, you're racist, you're a horrible person, you need to embrace all nationalities, races, ethnicities, whatever the diversity is. But when I started to see that I'm a racist and my unconscious aspect of myself through the constructs of the matrix and how it was programmed, it really took away my judgments. So, you know, you may say, well, how did you begin to hate black people and, you know, hate black women in particular, and you're a black woman? But, you know, like for example, when you look at television, the black woman is always portrayed in a very negative light. Either she's really white or really dark. And I'm not talking about in terms of ethnicities, white and dark. But, you know, the black woman is often seen as like some type of hood rat chick that's super duper materialistic and emotional. Or she's seen as someone who's very educated, but she can't find companionship. And she's stuck up and, you know, that type of thing. So the black woman is portrayed in a very negative light. Like when you watch shows like Empire and Cookie, you know, she's very emotional and masculine. Or like say Scandal, you know, where Kerry Washington, you know, she's a glorified whore. You know, she looks really good, and, you know, she dresses nice and she's intelligent, but she's sleeping with a married man. And so, you know, when you are watching these you know, various constructs of the Matrix that promote black women in such a poor light, you know, and also seeing examples of black women as I was growing up, it does something to your consciousness, and you're not aware of it until you start to wake up and your pineal gland opens, and you're like, wow, you know, I love and hate myself. It's like, wow, you know, that was just a revelation for me that I just, you know, it was very difficult for me to reconcile, and it's still difficult for me to reconcile to a certain extent. How do you love and hate something? You know, just like my daughter, I really love my daughter, but I also hate her in the astral. And so it's like whatever you are in your ego, you're the opposite of that in your astral when you've become so significantly polarized. And so, you know, I really, you know, it's just very difficult for the ego to really accept the totality of itself. But, you know, it's good because it helps you to create distance between your good and your bad self. You know, I have to realize that I'm the Christ. I'm not the one that's good or bad. I'm not the saint or the sinner. I'm the awareness of the saint and the awareness of the sinner. But when you're waking up, this unconscious aspect of you that feels dirty and sinful and shameful and guilty wants to blame the ego. And so I'm going through a process where I'm being blamed for being racist. But I'm just the awareness of a racist, you know. I'm being blamed for things that I had no control of. So when I look at Scandal and I look at Empire and, you know, shows like Love and Hip Hop and the Housewives of Atlanta where, you know, black women are portrayed in a negative light, and that's just a part of my programming, and I don't get a chance to determine what's in the mind, I can't be blamed for anything. I can't be blamed for an angelic ego either. You know, when it comes to duality, it works in both ways. I can't even be, you know, accept the fact that I'm a great mom. I can't accept that. I was forced to be a great mom, looking at the constructs of the Matrix and how they promote, you know, sacrificing yourself for your children and so forth. And so I was made into that. And so in order to ascend off the earth plane, out of the mind and out of the body, I just have to realize it's just a role. You know, in another lifetime, I would have another kid. You know, so it's, and she would have a different name, and, you know, I'd have a different religion and whatever the case is. So these are all just avatars that we're playing. And so If You Seek Amy is really, you know, about the dissociative personality, and showing how we are shells of ourselves, and we are judgmental toward the other aspect of ourselves, and we have to come back and integrate with that astral self in order for us to find some peace. And even if you look at, you know, the title, If You Seek Amy, if you're saying that, or you're singing that, it sounds like F-U-C-K me, like F me, basically. And so, you know, the thing is it really, you know, just kind of shows how the Kundalini is really debased, and that's the number one way through sex. Sex is one of the number one ways to disintegrate the soul. And once you disintegrate the soul with sexual abuse, you know, you're able to, you know, use programming and mind programming to put the nail in the coffin, excuse me, so to speak. So, you know, I hope that, you know, if you look in the comment section, you can click on the link to purchase the book. I think it's a great book. I'm not saying that to toot my own horn or anything like that, but I feel that you know, we have to embrace the totality of who we are. And Eve is always hunted. Eve is always hunted by God because the feminine right brain perspective of the soul is able to see past the constructs of the matrix. But it's important to descend into the matrix with some knowledge. You know, Eve represents knowledge. And so when you don't have knowledge, you are susceptible to believing in aspects of you that are not true. And, you know, as they say in the Gospel of Philip, I believe, you know, ignorance is the mother of all evil. And so when you are functioning as just a mere mortal, but you're an immortal within a mortal body, you know, you can accrue suffering. And so you have to actually live this life and inhabit your avatar, you know, in a way that allows you to have integration yet distance, you know. So that's pretty much it with, you know, Twist and If You Seek Amy. And I will see you guys in my next video.